Hello, my name is Paul Korsgaard and I welcome you very much here to my short video concerning me as a professional. I made my first program for 4 decades now and has been professional within the IT business from 1978. At that time I sold my first program to Texas Instrument, a program called Triangle Solutions. It was running on their TI-58 and TA-59. It was a very machine-dependent program as the only option. From 1987 and further or onwards, software development has been my biggest interest and has contributed to about 90% of my income and living. I work today within many fields, within I here will mention some of them. Primarily, I have been project manager and have practiced within that for more than 3 decades. Also, as system architect, I have practiced a whole lot and have done a lot of systems within the last 3 decades. You can see many of the systems on my homepage. Look at the bottom at the menu point called Me as a Professional. System analysis is one of my biggest and strongest skills, but also a big experience. I have done that for very complex and dynamic systems, mathematical systems, logical and algorithm complex systems, data complex, and of course big systems with more than 500,000 lines of code. I have done education, giving computer science teaching and courses, and as a matter of fact, teaching is what I'm best at. I have given lessons in complex techniques, e.g. programming languages, compiler techniques, advanced and also classical algorithms, dynamic data structures, operating systems, database constructions, DBMS or database management systems as it's called, but also more complex fields. Abstract computer science are one of my fields in which I have practiced for about the last 5 to 10 years. I started procedural programming for 3 decades ago. At that time, Pascal in 1981 was very much a buzzword. And I wrote the first Danish book about the Pascal programming language in 1981. The book was called Notes about the Pascal programming language. 15 years later, in the mid-1990s, I wrote the first Danish book about the Java programming language. A year later, I wrote the first Danish book about HTML, scripting, programming, writing, or whatever you call it. And at least I wrote the first Danish book about VBA, or Visual Basic for applications. I started object programming in the late 80s. At that time, we were using the famous Dane Anders Hallsberg's Pascal compiler, a compiler he later on sold to Poland and also moved to the US for further developing of that compiler. Later on, I used Java, where object-oriented programming is the only possibility. For about the last 15 years, I have used C++ for object-oriented programming. And when I say that, I mean real object-oriented programming and not using a C++ compiler for writing C code. Object-oriented analysis I experienced first time at the Danish Technical University, or DTU as it's called, in the late of the previous century. Object-oriented design and use cases I have done since 1999, sometimes using a case tool like System Architect. The waterfall model I have used very much. I am still using it and with a great success. Stepwise refinement is another discipline that I have been used for 3 decades now. It's a method I prefer very much, both for system but also for programming. And that includes, as a matter of fact, assembler programming. And I have also used that method for my homepage. Prototyping I became familiar with in 1999 at the Danish Customs here in Denmark. From that time, it had unconditional been my favorite way to develop user interfaces. Data design or database management systems, mostly based on SQL, I have done a whole lot of things within. I like relational algebra very much, and I have been using that on DB2, on Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, and Sybase. Operating system, especially parallel processes and threads, are one of my favorites. And because of that, of course, also semaphores. I have done embedded programming very much indeed for Nokia mobile phones, but also for protocol analysis. I like very much numerical analysis and have done that since I started programming. That's a field where I have done very complex systems within iteration, matrix algorithm, polynomial infinite series, and solution of multiple nonlinear simultaneous differential equation by means of matrix algebra and the Jacobi matrix as gradient when iterating using Newton's method. I have done much machine close programming, and I very much like to optimize code using assembler programming. I was one of the pioneers here in Denmark using assembler or machine programming for programming a microprocessor in the late 70s. I have been and are still author writing books and articles in the Danish newspaper as Computer World, The Engineer, PC World, and Windows World. I have done 9 books within computer science. I'm very well known for my analytical skills and my skills within the written language, but also my drive and experience. That's within project management especially. I am companionable, jovial, and polite, and I'm known as having a humoristic sense. For many years, I have done work within the software business within portfolio management in about 90% of the 25 biggest banks and saving banks in Denmark, but also for many stock and curry brokers in Denmark and abroad. That's within primarily currencies, but also stocks, bonds, warrants, futures, and options. I have been project manager and system developer from the start in 1986 on the most used Danish mortgage system called Pantebrevssystemet, which still is the best and of course the most famous in Denmark. Today it's a main product for Microtech Software, a limited I started in 1987. I have developed software, both plastic and financial software, running in Denmark, of course, but also the US, the UK, the Netherlands, Gibraltar, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and the Faroe Islands. My technical education concerning software is Bachelor in Science from South Danish University, later on Master in Science from Denmark's Technical University, and Bachelor in Mathematics from RUC or Roskilde University in Denmark. I have attended Copenhagen University for many years within the philosophical area, but also taken a lot of lessons within software on Denmark's Technical University, but also Copenhagen University. My personal interests are photography, cars, especially English sports cars from the mid-50s and until the early 70s. I'm also an educated mechanic, but also philosophy and music are my hobbies or interests. I have been myself a professional musician from 1973 and until 1978. You can see and read much more on my homepage about that, but unfortunately it's only in Danish, except the videos. I speak fluent Danish, English, and German. Within the biggest systems I have developed are Microtech Software's three systems within currency portfolio management, stock portfolio management, and the mortgage deeds system. Also the Danish CVR registry, a registry used by the authorities in Denmark for companies and registering them. Danish Railways traffic planning, Danish called Rejseplanen, but also embedded software used in Nokia's mobile phones. You can find further information on my homepage www.korsgaard.dk. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. You will find my address and much more on my homepage. Thank you for listening.